That evening, I was sitting in the family room watching TV when my son-in-law walked in and switched it off. "Go to your room, old woman," he said. "This living room is mine now." My daughter dropped her gaze. I stood up, took my keys, and left without saying a word. Welcome to my channel. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and like the video. Now let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. The click of the remote cut through the room like a gunshot. I was sitting in my green velvet armchair, the one I bought with my first Social Security check after my husband died 15 years ago. A cup of fresh coffee rested on the side table, slowly cooling, and the kitchen still smelled of peach cobbler. The TV murmured the news softly. This was my quiet time, when my joints eased and I didn't have to serve anyone. Then the front door slammed like a storm breaking into the house. I didn't look up. I already knew. Derek walked in like he owned the place. Behind him, my daughter Lena carried shopping bags, her shoulders slumped, her eyes on the floor as if apologizing for existing. Derek stepped right in front of the TV, blocking my view, snorted the way he always did when he saw me resting, grabbed the remote, and hit the red button. The screen went dark. "Go to your room, old woman," he shouted. "I've got the game on. The family room is mine now." The silence thickened, heavy with his short, smug breathing, as if shouting had. Instead, she lowered her head and fussed with a bag as if something inside had shifted. That small gesture hurt more than any scream. Her silence was betrayal. A cold clarity washed over me, not anger, not shame, just certainty. 35 years at the county recorder's office taught me one thing: words don't matter, documents do. I stood up. My knees cracked sharply in the quiet room, like a seal being stamped. Derek had already sprawled on my couch, unbuttoning his shirt and grabbing a soda without even looking at me. In his world, I was furniture. I walked past him and went into my room, not to cry or hide, but to act. I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser and pulled out a stiff leather pouch, then my keys and a blue folder held with an elastic band. Inside were the papers, a bill of sale, old but valid, and a current deed of title. Owner, Celeste M. Everson. Yellowed edges, iron power. In the mirror, I saw my short gray hair, glasses on a chain, linen trousers, a navy blouse. I looked like a harmless grandmother who bakes cookies, and that had always been my tactic. As long as grandma feeds the wolves, they feel like kings. The moment she closes the pot, their power melts away. I returned to the family room. The sports channel was blaring. Lena clattered dishes, choosing noise over courage. I walked to the front door, my heels clicking on the hardwood. Derek turned, smirked, and lifted his soda. "Taking a stroll, Celeste? Don't get lost. At your age." I didn't answer. I stepped outside and closed the door quietly but firmly, like placing a period at the end of a sentence. The air was crisp. I wasn't cold. I locked the front gate from the outside, walked to the avenue, and flagged a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The Grand Hyatt downtown." In the back seat, I pulled out my phone. My fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from strength. I scrolled to a name I hadn't called in years but trusted completely: Andrew V. Sterling, attorney at law. We used to work near each other, him on property disputes, me on deeds. "Celeste? It's nearly 9. What's wrong?" "I woke up," I said, watching the city lights. "I need your help. I have court tomorrow morning." "Why the rush?" "My mental health and my property." "I'm listening." "I want to evict 2 tenants. But you live with your daughter and son-in-law." "Exactly." He paused. He knew my reputation. "What did they do?" He said, "Old woman, this living room is mine now." My daughter stayed silent. "I left, and I won't return until they're gone." "That's moral abuse at least," he said. "But you don't need pity. You need the law. The house is mine. They've lived there 4 years without a lease, on my dime. Oh, can I help with your luggage? I only have my purse, I said softly, and my dignity. The room smelled of lavender and clean sheets. A large TV faced the bed. I turned it on, set the volume exactly how I liked it, ordered soup and a glass of Cabernet, and ate slowly. My thoughts returned to the house, but now they were mine. I knew their morning routine by heart. Derek sleeps late and wakes angry. Lena rushes around smoothing his moods. I imagined my front gate, the intercom, a confident finger pressing the button. This wasn't a visit. It was the law knocking. I slept deeply, like someone who had taken control of the wheel. I woke with the sun, showered, wore the same clothes but carried myself differently. At Andrew's office, signatures, dates, property details. Each stroke of my pen sounded like a final judgment. Roman is on his way, Andrew said, nodding toward a tall young man with a leather briefcase. 20 minutes and he'll be at your gate. Perfect. I put my bag down and sat in the reception area. I'll wait here. Panic always remembers it has a mother and a mother-in-law. The coffee from the machine smelled sweet. The clock on the wall whispered tick-tock. Somewhere back in my family room, a different kind of legal music was beginning. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't running between the stove and other people's whims. I was simply waiting. 9:30, my phone vibrated on my knee. The day had begun. Lena's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before swiping to answer. Mama, Mama, for heaven's sake, she shrieked. There's a man here, but it says eviction notice, 30 days. Mama, have you lost your mind? No, Lena. For the first time in years, I am completely sane. Read the paper. Do what it says. The fewer screams, the better. I ended the call. The small red button returned silence as easily as turning off a bedside lamp when I was a child. The office door opened slightly and Andrew V. Sterling peeked over his glasses. Your daughter? I nodded. The show has opened on schedule. Roman served the papers. We have the signatures and the attachment inventory. Now we wait. I settled back into the reception chair. The vending machine coffee smelled like caramel. The clock whispered tick-tock. I wasn't thinking about time. I was thinking about how for 4 years I had shrunk myself inside my own house, careful not to disturb their moods. How I ate the burned edges of pie, leaving the soft center for the king of the living room. How I watched TV with headphones so I wouldn't interrupt conference calls. How I paid triple the utility bills and stayed silent. I opened my purse and pulled out a pension statement folded into quarters, the lifetime payout from my banker husband, along with steady investment accounts. The figures stood neat like soldiers. They meant I could live. They meant I didn't have to beg. Then I took out a printout of transfers, the down payment for their black crossover, gifts, emergency top-ups when car payments almost bounced, all labeled family support. My hands sometimes trembled, but the signature was straight as a ruler. Old habits. I brushed the notifications away like crumbs from a table. Andrew stepped into the hall. Tea, he offered. Something else, I said. I need to turn off the utilities. Which ones? Everything in my name. Fiber internet, cable with the sports package, the landline, and the supplementary card Lena uses for groceries. Suspend, not cancel. I'll reactivate them when the house is mine alone again. He smirked. That will be felt. Yesterday was painful, I replied. Today is simply felt. They're different. I took out a small notebook. On a clean page appeared a simple plan. Step 1, legal, completed. Paper served, deadlines clear. Step 2, financial, turn off the taps. Let the king of the living room learn the cost of his kingdom. Step 3, silence. No scandals, no explanations, only facts. The phone vibrated again. Lena's frantic messages filled the screen. He's furious. We've been shamed. People were watching. Where are you? Let's talk. I put the phone away. Today, my silence was the answer. Is there a decent clothing store nearby? I asked. Gallery Mall, 2 blocks, Andrew said. What are you planning? I'm dressed like a grandma, I said, meeting his eyes. And I'm setting boundaries. I need a uniform. You're dangerous when you're calm, he said without smiling. I'm just returning to myself, I replied, taking my purse and leaving. Outside, it was bright and dry. I walked quickly, not looking back. The windows reflected me, straighter, steadier. She nodded and returned with dark blue straight-leg trousers, a crisp white blouse, and a beige linen blazer. In the fitting room, the clothes settled perfectly. The low heels clicked on the tile like a metronome. I folded my old clothes into a bag. Donate these, I said. Let them serve someone else. I sat nearby and made my calls. Good afternoon. I am the contract holder. I request a temporary suspension of services at this address. Internet, cable TV, sports package, landline. Reason, repairs. 2 hours. Confirmed. Next call. I am the primary account holder. Block the supplementary card in Lena Everson's name. Reason, security. Lower limits. Alerts to my number only. Done. Later, I ordered mushroom risotto and a glass of dry white wine. Slowly. My phone vibrated. Transaction declined. $85. Butcher shop. Prime ribeye. I smiled once, without sentiment. Another message followed. The cards aren't working. Call the bank. Derek's number. I replied calmly. It's not a malfunction. It's a freeze. Credit and trust expired yesterday. I finished my meal, paid easily, and returned to the hotel. I rested, then the landline rang. Your daughter is in the lobby, reception said. I checked the time. Perfect. She pressed her lips together. You're humiliating us, she whispered. Everyone saw it today. The card failed. Humiliation, I said quietly, is being pushed out of my own living room. It's eating the burned edges of the pie while leaving the center for the king. Today, no one humiliates anyone. Today, everyone pays their own bill. She tried to defend herself. We were saving. We had money. Where is the money, Lena? I asked. Over 4 years, just in living expenses and bills, there should be nearly $100,000. Where is it? Her eyes slid to the side. Her shoulders dropped. He said it was tied up in business. Investing. He'll show me later. He'll show you, I nodded. Tomorrow at 10 sharp. Mr. Sterling's office. You're both invited. We'll see this business. You called a lawyer against your own family, she said, testing me. I called the rules, I replied. Family is respect, not go to your room, old woman, this is my living room. Tomorrow is about rules. She sighed, her voice breaking. If we leave, he'll file for divorce. He says if he doesn't have your house, he doesn't want to be with me. The words didn't bring pity. They brought clarity. I leaned forward and covered her clasped hands with mine. If your marriage survives only on my square footage and my bank account, that's not family, Lena. That's a hostage situation, and you're the hostage. She yanked her hands away. You've become cruel. Old and cruel. I've become an adult. No internet, I said. Your voice still works. Tomorrow we talk at the attorney's office. Today, silence. Lena stood, adjusted her purse strap, searched my face for the softness I used to give her, and didn't find it. She backed toward the exit. I'll be there. 10 sharp, I said. I nodded as she left. Only then did the tension drain out of me, not weakness, just breath returning to normal. I took the stairs. I needed the walk. In my room, I switched on the desk lamp and opened my laptop. A message blinked from Andrew V. Sterling. Celeste. Notice served. Derek's corporate lawyers confirmed receipt. He's been pressuring you through internal emails. Director copied. Reprimand likely. Negotiations tomorrow at 10. Both will attend. I closed the laptop. Haste is the sister of fear. The king of the living room was already making mistakes. I opened my phone, scrolled to settings, and turned off the family location app Derek had installed years ago for my safety. Geolocation access prohibited flashed. Good. My dot belonged to me again. I dropped my keys on the nightstand. The metal jingled cleanly, like a new password. Outside, evening light stretched along the avenue. The AC hummed steadily. I sat on the edge of the bed and felt it, order. Not victory. Not joy. Just order. Tomorrow at 10, the conference room door would open and 3 people would walk in, him, my daughter, and the law. The room was cool, air blowing hard. I asked for the head of the table. Andrew V. Sterling sat to my right, folders neat, pen aligned. In front of me lay my driver's. Behind him, Lena clutched her purse, eyes on the floor. Please be seated, Sterling said, his voice like a gavel. I'm not here for pleasantries, Derek snapped, yanking out a chair. We've lived there 4 years. We have rights. I looked over my glasses and paused so his anger filled the room. Rights are exactly why we're here, I said. The house is my sole property. You occupy it by goodwill. That goodwill is terminated. The notice is on the table. 30 days. Adverse possession, he shot back. We lived there openly as owners. Have you even read the law? I have, I smiled faintly. I worked with it for 35 years. It applies when the owner doesn't live there, doesn't pay, and doesn't object. I live there. I pay. I object. You're not owners. You're temporary, and loud. Derek's jaw tightened. He looked to Sterling for help. The notice is valid, the attorney said smoothly. Upon expiration, eviction proceedings and recovery of fair market rent will follow. This is illegal, Derek raised his voice. She cut internet, funds, caused emotional distress. I'm suing. Internet is not a life-sustaining utility, Sterling replied evenly. If you want it, connect it yourself. Lena, tell her, Derek snapped. She's destroying our family. Lena blinked. Silence returned. I slid a folder toward her. Let the paper speak, I said. 4 years of supposed saving for a condo. Nearly $100,000. Where is it? Derek tried to smirk. Investments. Futures. One heavy tear fell. 0, she whispered. Worse, I said gently. Nothing was saved. There were bets, games, expensive steaks, imported beer. All on my card. I would have made it back, Derek burst out. The market's turning. I needed one more infusion. And that's why you needed my living room? I raised a brow. To lose louder and send me to my room? His fists clenched, fear bleeding through the anger. I'm your son-in-law, he forced out. Family helps. Family is respect and boundaries, I said. You offered neither. I stood. The movement straightened everyone. Terms. 30 days to move out. Internet, cable, and extra cards stay off. If they're screaming when I collect my winter clothes, I call the police and file a report. We'll see how recruiters like that with your reprimand. Derek slumped as if bolts had loosened. Lena covered her face. The AC roared. One more thing, I said to my daughter. These 30 days are your choice. Drown with a man who lied, or swim up. I am your mother, not a bank or a cafeteria. She looked at me, really looked. If I have nowhere to go, she whispered. You'll find a place. You work. You rent a studio. You sell the car. You manage your money. I paid for my lessons. I gathered my papers. The meeting is concluded, Sterling said. I walked past Derek and paused. You can press the remote on your own life. It doesn't work on my house tomorrow at 10. I'll be there. We breathed once more and hung up. The street smelled of hot asphalt. I left the office, lifted my face to the sun, and hailed a cab. Where to? A nice restaurant, I said. I'm celebrating today. No toasts. By the window overlooking the river, I ordered clam chowder, a salad, and a glass of dry white wine. I placed my phone face down. My teaspoon clinked softly against the glass. Sunlight danced on the tablecloth. I ate slowly, like a woman who belongs to herself again. My phone buzzed briefly. Bank messages. Transfers to the protected account completed. Supplementary cards closed. Beneficiary on the life insurance changed. Confirmation available online. I smiled with no one watching. All loose ends tied. No one would sign for me again. Almost immediately, an email from Andrew V. Sterling arrived. For your records, after the 30-day period, Roman will be at the gates at 8 sharp with the handover documents and inventory. If there are threats, call. Derek's reprimand has been confirmed. I finished the wine as if closing a case file. Something clicked in my head. The final act was scheduled. I paid and walked along the water. People argued over small things. Children flew past on scooters. The wind smelled of river air and warm metal. In a shop window, I saw my reflection. The same woman, only lighter inside. Not a victim, not a hero. Just an adult. That evening, I returned to the Grand Hyatt and took off my blazer. The armor could rest. The phone rang. Lena. I'm at Zoe's, sleeping on a folding cot. It's okay. He called dozens of times. I blocked him. Good, I said. Sleep. Tomorrow at 10. She hesitated. Mom, were you ever afraid of being alone? I was, I answered honestly. Until I realized it's worse to live where you don't exist. She sighed and said goodnight. In the shower, the water washed off the sticky layer that had clung to me for years in my own family room. I put on a simple nightgown, lay atop the comforter, and let soft music play. The silence was honest, the kind where you hear your own breathing. In the morning, I had oatmeal, coffee, and water at the cafe. A man nearby scowled at the news. In my life, the main headlines were already written. Before leaving, I stopped by Andrew V. Sterling's office to sign final papers and Roman's power of attorney. We spoke briefly, professionally. Keep going, Celeste. This is right, he said. I'm only taking what's mine, I replied. Outside, the sun was warm. I went to the salon. I wanted my hair to match my spine. The stylist trimmed the tired ends. The gray shone like silver. In the mirror, the same face looked back, but the eyes no longer waited for permission. They belonged to a woman with keys in her own pocket. At a red light, I smiled. Life was simpler when rules were followed, on the road and at home. My phone beeped. Roman confirmed. Day 30, 8 sharp. Gates. Locks. Inventory. I ate breakfast, set my phone face down, and drove out of the city to a spa. I would not be home today. Roman called. At the gates. Truck's here. Proceed by the inventory, I said. I'm reachable. Then there was steam, water, herbal tea. I stared at the ceiling and thought of only one thing. Tonight, I would open the windows and wash the floor. At 11, the phone buzzed. Derek made noise, but signed. Keys handed over. Inventory complete. Some holes from mounts. Furniture marks. Locks intact. 12:30. They're gone. I put the phone away. No anger. No joy. Just fact. At 2, I stopped at a hardware store. Gloves, mop, rags, cleaner. On the way, I called the painter Andrew recommended. Tomorrow at 9? We can. One day, the man said. At the gates, the key turned easily, as if the house exhaled. I stepped inside and stopped. The family room was empty. Marks where furniture had stood. Ugly holes in the wall. The air was stale. I opened every window. A draft ran through the house, lifting curtains, carrying out the remains of someone else's life. I put on gloves. Shelves first, then baseboards, then corners where dust waits. Old magazines went into a trash bag. I wiped the Savannah riverfront print and hung it lower, where it suited me. The floor took warm water twice. The rug met a stiff brush. With every motion, the house returned to it. I filed for divorce. The pro bono lawyer is handling it. I nodded. A warm, steady feeling rose in me. That's the right road, I said. It will hurt. Then it will settle. He says you broke the family, she said, with a faint smile. And then I realized, you didn't destroy anything. You simply stopped feeding the lie. We sat in silence. Outside the window, the garden rustled softly, like fresh sheets being shaken out. Thank you for saying no, she added, placing her palm over mine. While you were patching the holes, I finally heard myself. Hearing yourself isn't a luxury, I said. It's order. She took a deep breath. Mama, can I come over sometimes as a guest? No keys, no staying over. Just tea and conversation. That's exactly how it should be, I replied. The door is open for guests. It's temporarily closed for tenants. We hugged briefly, an adult hug. On the porch, she adjusted her purse strap and walked toward the gate. She walked straight, without looking back, like someone who had chosen her own pace. I returned to the family room. The peach walls glowed softly. The notebook lay on the end table. I opened a clean page and wrote, Wednesday 4 p.m. sharp. Tea with the neighbors. Topic, wills, separate accounts, passwords. Bring questions and a notebook. My phone lit up with a message from Zoe. Celeste. Betty is crying. Her son is pressuring her to sign the house over to him. Investment, Mom. I'll buy you a better one later. By 4 on Wednesday, I boiled the kettle, took out my document folder, and laid pens, blank sheets, and envelopes on the table. On the folder cover, I wrote in large pencil letters, Wednesday 4 p.m. The house smelled of peach cobbler and fresh paint. The peach walls looked warmer in the afternoon light. Not a show, order. The bell rang briefly. Zoe came first, then Olga, and right after them Betty, hunched and red-eyed. My son is rushing me to sign the house over to him, she said from the doorway. Investment, Mama. I'll buy you a better one later. I'm afraid to refuse. Afraid he'll be angry. Sit down, I said, pouring tea. Let's start simply. Gifting the house is forever. You can't take it back. If you want to leave something, you write a will. While you're alive, the property stays yours. As a last resort, there's a life estate, but that's careful work. No rushing. Zoe nodded. And no passwords to anyone. Not kids, not grandkids, not for games. Exactly. I slid a paper toward Betty. Here's a phrase to start with, I am not ready to change ownership of the property. To think about it, yes. To sign, no. He'll push. Repeat it word for word. If he yells, leave the room. Close the door. You only sign papers when your head is calm. Olga snorted. Next you'll give her a lawyer's number. I will, I nodded. Roman. Andrew V. Sterling's associate. He doesn't yell and reads the fine print fast. And never, she said. I'm going home today not to cry, but to talk. We're here every Wednesday, Zoe said. At 4. Tea and questions. They left differently than they'd arrived, not quieter, but steadier. I washed the cups, wiped the table, and opened the windows wide. The garden smelled of wet grass. The house felt light. Lena came by at 8. She knocked like a guest. May I come in? Tea's still warm. She took off her jacket, walked to the peach wall, and ran her hand over it. It's beautiful, she said softly. Warm. A house should be warm. Everything else is extra. We sat down. She held the mug with both hands. I was at the lawyer's, she said, looking ahead. The divorce is moving forward. Full-time work is steady. I don't want supplementary cards anymore, not even for milk. I pay for myself now. She hesitated. But sometimes, can I come as a guest? No keys, no staying over. Just tea and conversation. That's exactly right, I said. The door is open for guests. For tenants, it's permanently closed. That's not cruelty. It's a rule. She nodded, thought, then smiled slightly. You know, I miss your no. I spent my whole life learning your yes. I could recognize calls like that even without a name. I almost reached for the phone, then stopped and calmly pressed block. Life has plenty of news, but taking calls about other people's crises is no longer my obligation. I walked through the house, kitchen, hallway, family room. My documents were neatly stacked on the shelf. The Savannah riverfront print hung where it felt right to me. In my study, a clean notebook waited. I sat down and opened it. On the first line, I wrote, "The house, the owner's story." Not for Lena, but for myself, and for those still sitting in their green armchairs, afraid to pick up the remote. I wrote simply about how fear disguises itself as care, how habit drowns out your voice, how one phrase, "Go to your room, old woman," reveals the whole scheme, how documents give your spine back, and how unplugged internet can suddenly turn on your brain. I wrote that you cannot give away yourself or your house, not out of love and not out of pity, that living together without respect is not family but a hostage situation, and that a timely no saves better than 1,000 yes. Then I closed the notebook and slid it into the drawer. I returned to the family room and ran my palm over the back of the green armchair. I sat down. The remote lay on the end table, an ordinary black device. I picked it up. It was no longer a symbol of someone else's power, just a thing. I turned on the TV and found music. The violin played clearly, without hesitation. No footsteps in the hall. No sudden shutdown. No go to your room. I closed my eyes, listened, and without rushing raised the volume by one notch. Exactly as loud as I liked it. Not quieter. Not louder. Enough, I said out loud. And in that moment, I understood the word meant much more now. It meant I was adult enough to set conditions in my own home. It meant I was strong enough not to rescue those who weren't asking for help, only for cards and square footage. It meant I had lived long enough to understand a simple truth. Ownership isn't just about keys and deeds. It's about choosing the silence, the people at your table, and the volume of the music. I turned off the TV and listened to the house. It breathed evenly. Outside, the garden darkened. A branch shifted. Water clicked softly in a pipe. Nothing dramatic. Just a simple life I was no longer renting out. In the hallway, my beige blazer hung on the hook. I straightened the lapel, fixing a small detail so it wouldn't grow into a bigger problem. The keys jingled on the nightstand. The metal was warm. There were no other key bundles beside mine. In tomorrow's notebook, it was written, Wednesday 4 p.m. sharp. Wills and passwords. I closed the cover, set the kettle for the morning, and turned off the light. The house was mine, but more importantly, I was home again. And in my life, just like on the remote, the volume is now set by me. I'm really glad you stayed with me and listened to my story. If it touched you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is right now. I'm truly curious where you're listening from. If you'd like to support the channel a little more, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories with you every single day. And now, two of my most popular stories are appearing on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.